Let's go off the grid. Okay. Let's go off the grid. Okay. I know that you really want to put your phone away. Yeah. Let's go off the grid.
Hello, and welcome to Off the Grid, a podcast about sharing your work and making money online without relying on social media or big tech. I'm your host, Amelia Ruby, and on this show, I share stories, strategies, and experiments for starting, growing, or simply making it work in creative small business with radical generosity and energetic sovereignty. Today on the show, I am joined by a very special guest who shares in those values and in this project of running a creative business with our dignity, our humanity, and our care intact. And before I tell you all about them, I do want to remind you that this show is paired with a very special and potent free resource. It's called the Leaving Social Media Toolkit. And inside that toolkit, you'll find a 5-step plan for breaking up with any platform, a list of 100 ways to share your work and life without social media, and a creative marketing ideas database so that as you hear things talked about on this show, you can collect those ideas and even make plans for seasonal marketing experiments. Speaking of seasonal marketing experiments, we are getting ready for summer here at Off the Grid, and by we, I mean me. I am preparing for my asynchronous July, which is a month where I have committed to doing no Zoom calls for work. So I'm very excited and getting ready for that. I also have some behind the scenes projects in the works. The Off the Grid Clubhouse will be moving from Substack to Ghost this summer, and I've been setting up some of the things I need behind the scenes to make that happen. I'm also going to be sprucing up the Leaving Social Media Toolkit that I just mentioned, and I think I forgot to say that you can get it at offthegrid.fun/toolkit, which you can. I will be sprucing that up and adding a new Start Here page to the Off the Grid website because now that we are over 160 episodes in, plus all the Clubhouse episodes, there are over 200 episodes I've created on all sorts of themes, and I want to make it easier for new listeners to dive in. So if you are a new listener, welcome. For now, head to offthegrid.fun/toolkit to get the free Leaving Social Media Toolkit, and very soon I will have a brand new Start Here page for you since that is one of my summer projects. This summer, I also think I might be working on another book. That is a super secret. I mean, not a secret. It's just, I'm not sure yet. Probably premature to say it on the podcast, but if you want another book from me, send me a little energy as I work on that this summer. And I'm also planning to do some more sunsetting at Softer Sounds, stepping back with some more podcast editing clients, really transitioning into Off the Grid being my full-time business. So I am taking advantage of the summer to step back from some of my more public-facing work and dig deep into my creative process and serving the folks who already support the show financially, either in the Clubhouse or the interweb. And as we dive into that, let me tell you all about today's guest. Natalie Brite is the founder and creative director of DoGoodBiz, an ethical creative studio for conscious leaders and the movements they're building. On their Substack newsletter, Natalie writes about creativity, ecosystems, and doing work rooted in care. They're also very critical of social media in the soft, supportive way we do things around here. Together, we get into the consequences of social media dependence, a step-by-step breakdown of how Natalie reinvented the marketing strategy for DoGoodBiz. We talk about what it actually means to take an ecosystems approach to business, because lots of people say a business is an ecosystem, but what do they actually mean by that? And we discuss why we think a creative ecosystem model is more powerful than the personal brand model, even though we also love personal brands. Let's dive into my conversation with Natalie Brite. Hi, Natalie. Welcome to Off the Grid.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I found your Substack, I don't even know, at some point in the past 2 years, and I definitely had a little bit of a feeling of like, have I discovered an internet doppelganger? Like, we write about such similar things. And so I reached out to you to be like, let's be internet friends. And now we're here today. I'm so pumped.
I know. I know. I love those kinds of connections where it's like somebody that gets it too.
100%. And I also think it just really speaks to something like shared in both of our ethos, which is like, if you really take an ecosystems approach to your work, then you understand that like nothing is purely singular and the goal isn't to be the only one, right? I love that there are many of us having these conversations. I love that we're both sharing similar ideas from our own unique perspectives. We can build and grow together. To me, that's embedded in the idea of a creative ecosystem. And it's why this isn't business as usual. So it just feels really aligned all the way down.
100% agree.
So I wanted to take us in by talking a bit about your business and your business journey. So you run a studio called DoGoodBiz. And from my reading your work on the internet, outsider perspective, it feels like your business has undergone a really deep transformation over the past few years. Can you tell us a bit about how your work has changed, both from how your perspective on small business has shifted and also why you've decentered social media in that process, which of course I was excited to see.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I feel like we could have just a conversation around this alone for days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been working for myself for over a decade. And, when I first started, it was such a different world, like such a different world. There wasn't yet live video, it was just so simple in a way, where as the years progressed, it just became so complex and so complicated where, trying to keep up with the speed of the online business world really started weighing on me. And I had a lot of moments where, and I think a lot of us get to this place where it's like, is this actually aligned with how I want to do business? Is this actually aligned with my values and what I stand for and stand on? And I had so many different moments of, I would say, like pure meltdown in a way of just like, I can't do this. I can't do it this way, and over the years, I didn't start as the studio we are today. I actually originally had a coaching and consulting business for small businesses and did much more of that consulting world. And through that, it wasn't what I wanted to do. I can do it, but it's not what I wanted to do. And that's kind of where, long story short, Do Good Biz kind of was birthed. But getting into kind of what shaped where we are today versus where we were as a studio, we grew really fast. And sure, that's exciting and wonderful. And also, it was such a big lesson because through that rapid growth, I had to really step back and be like, wait a minute. Do I even want to grow? Do I even want it to transform into this entity that it became? What was it? Like this time last year, we had a team of 8. And it was because we had grown so fast and so rapidly that we just were like, well, we need to keep hiring more people to handle all of this. And through all of that, I quickly realized a couple things. I don't want to be a boss. I'm not good at it. I have no desire to do it. I don't like to manage people. And I don't want a big team. And so it was such an eye-opening experience of all of these success metrics and examples of business that we've been handed just aren't my cup of tea. And I think I've tried to force myself into it so many times. And then it bites me in the ass. And I'm like, this isn't actually it. So it's been such a wild journey where now I feel like for the first time in my over decade of working for myself, I'm actually this is what I want to do. This is it. This is not just what I want to do for work, though. It's how I want to live. I have more time, more spaciousness to do things outside of how I make money, to spend time on things that I really care about that isn't attached to how do I make money off of this. So it's been such a wild ride. And in the process of that, so much came up for me around social media and running a business on it versus off of it. I started my business heavily on Instagram. That's where I kind of built the brand at first. And then I really just had this tumultuous relationship with it where it was like, I felt like I had to be on it. I felt like I was stuck on Instagram, especially, and I just like depended on it. But then when I really looked at it, I was like, no, I don't. I don't. That's just a story I'm telling myself. And so yeah, I had to really get very honest with, again, coming back to the values. Does it align with what I actually believe in? And a lot of the way that I approach business is very anti-capitalist and very nature-based. And social media has always felt like such a polar opposite to how I want to do things and how I see things. And especially over the last year, just seeing different decisions that Meta has made and continues to make, I can't subscribe to it. I just can't. And I mean, it's difficult, right? Because every platform, if you really dig, they're not great. There's unethical, gross stuff everywhere. But we have to kind of pick and choose which ones can we feel okay with versus not. And Meta was my hard line of like, no, I'm not doing it. And I would say the last 2 years has been heavily dedicated to no dependency on social media and just really focusing on community-based growth and relationship-based growth and SEO and website and, all of that kind of stuff and just learning new skills that don't force me into algorithms and performance and all of that stuff.
I know it's a lot that changes as you move through all of those questions and the answers that arise. I'm so curious, if I remember correctly, like you did a lot of design and branding work and also like ran social campaigns for people and were designing people's Instagram posts and things like that. In your journey of like stepping away from social media, how did you navigate like, I'm doing this all for my clients? I mean, I assume especially that like sort of recurring revenue of we run people's social media all the time was probably something you really had to figure out. Like, how do I step away from this? How do I shift my model? So is there anything you could share about how you shifted your offerings as you made these choices?
That's such a powerful question. And literally, as you're asking it, I have like this flashback of a very specific moment that it was like, nope, can't do this anymore. And it was, I think, about 2 years ago, and my partner and I were on like a holiday out in Mount Hood. We rented like a little Airbnb by the river, and it was like so beautiful and wonderful. But I was working because I was having to still check in with accounts and manage accounts and make sure content got published and all of this stuff. And I was so upset about it, where it was just like, when was the last time that I was able to not have to check anything, to actually have a full day off where I didn't even have to like think about anything, check anything, nothing. I didn't know. It had been since we started managing large accounts and multiple accounts. And mind you, like me checking in on a holiday, I wasn't even the only one. We had other team members that were also having to do it for other people too. So it was like also kind of the guilt of what kind of standard am I setting for our team and for the studio of like, we don't have time off, but yet we promote sustainability and rest and all of these things that we're not practicing. It was such like a heart to heart with myself moment. And that was in the fall. I realized like, okay, we need to really sit down and restructure things. And we let go of 75% of our retainer management partners and kept the ones that we just really believed in and really aligned with what they do. And now we still do take management retainers, but we have a very specific cap. We only take very specific types of people that we really align with the work. And we have really clear boundaries. Like, we don't do anything on the weekends, no matter what. We don't touch it. Very clear boundaries. But it definitely restructured so much in terms of the conversations and the guidance that we provide clients now, where one of the first things, like if we take on somebody's marketing to manage it, we emphasize we don't just do social media management. We don't. And so we actually focus on long form content, podcasting, blogging. We have a lot of people who do other forms of marketing that's in person. So we help people set up their events or network locally to build community and do things in person that way. And so just really shifting to make sure that we're not encouraging people to get stuck in social media and to build their ecosystems in a much more varied way with multiple touch points, so that if they decide, I don't want to be on social media, they don't have to be on it. And yeah, a lot of educating people on why and how. I've noticed, and I'm curious if you've noticed this too, but there's like such a block for so many entrepreneurs and micro businesses and stuff where it's like, I just can't get off of it. I think a lot of it's habitual too, but this total dependency where there's no imagination outside of social media. It's like my imagination stops at social media marketing. And it's like there's so many other ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think literally that block is the entire scene and premise of this podcast. Like, it's why Off the Grid is still a show about and for creative business and not simply a like leave social media show for everyone. And of course, lots of people listen to the show. Perhaps, dear listener, you tuned in or like not a quote unquote business owner. But I think that I have always been really interested in this sort of myth and justification that like I can't leave social media because I run a business, or I have to be on social media for my business. Like, I get those arguments so much. And it's not that I don't understand where that's coming from or I don't understand the logic of it, but I loved how you put it, that it's like there's no imagination to that logic. There is no expansive personal political imagining there. And I think that we really need that in this time. And so in the off the grid space and in our interweb community, like lots of people here have social media, but we all agree that it's never the only thing that we're doing. It's not even the primary thing that we're doing. And it's why the way I talk about the show is like, we do all of this without relying on social media, like you said, like without dependence. It's not that, you know, I insist that every single listener show me proof you've deleted your social media. Like, that would be really funny if I attempted that, and that would be like a wild choice to make. But no, that's not it to me. Like, I'm not interested in a black and white approach, but I'm with you on like, I do believe we have to imagine otherwise because it's so clear the harm that these platforms and companies are doing at this point.
Yes. The mental consequences too. You know, I think about that a lot of just like my partner not on social media at all. And his relationship is so vastly different than mine is because of his lack of experience with it. And so just noticing how free there's like this freedom versus this feeling caged when you're so stuck in it. And the consequences of that, the consequences on our systems, the consequences on how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the world and other people. And now with all the propaganda and all of this other stuff, it's just like, it's really intense. And we're taught, you know, with the attention economy to just like consume, scroll, with little critical thinking, little intention behind it. And that's one of the biggest benefits I've seen to like this decentering of it is now when I get on, like I scroll Instagram all the time, but it's like animal videos and gardening tips and like stuff where when I'm on it, it's just like I actually leave feeling good. I don't leave feeling like shame about myself. Whereas before I did, I always felt like I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't being enough. And I had to change something about myself to fit in to what that space was, expecting of me. So it's a freedom to no longer depend on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think of this as liberatory work. And it's so interesting that you started with like your partner who's off social media or doesn't use it at all, because I think people always expect me to have that experience, but my spouse is in fact a digital editor and social media manager at their job. And so like social media is alive and well in our household, but I don't use it at all. And it's so interesting to like see the ways that we rub up against these things in our life and to see like what helps us imagine otherwise. So for some people, it's someone who's totally not there and seeing that sense of freedom. For other people, it's probably hearing you talk about how through changing your relationship to the platform, you've shifted like what you're responding to there and how it makes you feel. I'm interested in all of these strategies. And also, I try to hold a pretty hard line that like there is no being on the apps that doesn't impact us. It is always impacting us, whether it's on the level of our mental health, on the level of our privacy, on the level of, the behavioral manipulation that these apps are trying to do there. There is an impact, but we each get to decide what is the price I'm willing to pay for that. And sometimes, frankly, the really cute animal video, you're willing to pay a price for that.
100%. And you just made me remember another thing that like I have found to be incredibly helpful is intent behind usage and reason for each platform too. So like I use Threads for non-business. Like I actually use Threads to find out political things going on here in Portland, political things going on in the country and the world. It's a very like I go there because I have specific journalists and independent speakers that are sharing things that I can get there. But that's it. And whereas like Instagram is rarely used, but when it is used, it's like random cute stuff or DIY stuff, art stuff. So it's like, I think that's the other thing too of like, for me, Meta is so toxic and so scary in terms of their practices and influence on this planet that I 100% agree with what you're saying of like, we have to really also acknowledge like, okay, every time I log in, this is what I'm voting for. This is what I'm subscribing to. And do we even need to log in?
Yeah, I think there are sort of like two frameworks that I've come to throughout the course of making the show that I always find helpful in asking that question. And like the one is like, if you're using social media, the two questions I always ask are like, how does it feel and is it working? And that is it working question gets to your point about intention, like being really clear about like, what is my intention for my use of this platform? And am I getting that thing? Like, is the result I hope for happening? Is the impact I want happening? So if what you want, if your intention is to learn from certain political creators who are there, like, is that happening? Maybe it is. Maybe you're able to find them and it's great. Maybe they're so buried by the algorithm, you never see them. And so you have to decide, like, am I going to change my behavior by just going to their profiles, or am I going to get off because I realize I'm not seeing them at all? I find that really helpful. And then I also think the other sort of framework I've started using is like sort of understanding our use or not use of these platforms through what I've started thinking of as like the 3 Ps. Like I think there are personal, professional, and political reasons that we make these choices, right? Like it sounds like to me, you're on Instagram for personal reasons often. The cat videos, the garden, like the cute stuff, like that's there. Many people are on Instagram for professional reasons. Like they're thinking about their business or their job. I also hear this a lot with like LinkedIn. People are on LinkedIn for professional reasons. But then there are also like the political reasons. And all of that can be reasons for leaving too. Like some people leave social media for personal reasons. It feels really bad. Some leave for professional reasons. It's not actually working. And some leave for political reasons. Like the misalignment between the company and the world and what I want to see is too vast and I won't stay here any longer. And I think being able to ask, how does it feel and is it working, on each of those levels provides a lot of clarity. It's like a really good journaling exercise for anyone tuned in.
Excellent. Like excellent, excellent. And it's like once you find those answers within yourself, getting really honest with, okay, am I willing to do what I need to do in response to it? Because I think that's the hard thing too, is I go through periods where it's like I'm so grossed out by something that I'm like, I'm done, like not getting on this for a long time. But then I might be out in the garden and I'm trying to do something and I'm like, oh, I remember so and so posted how to do this. So I'll go like on a platform and find it, So it's like a fluid experience too, I think, But again, it comes back to checking in with ourselves, intent, and yeah, trusting that we can do what we probably want to do and it might be leaving.
Yeah, and I always want Off the Grid to sort of be a beacon of possibility in that way. Like, as I've said many times already, I don't think everyone has to leave social media, but if you need to believe that you can always come to this show for that support. Okay, I have one more question for you about social media before I want to move into talking more about creative ecosystems and community-based business models. But before we get there, I flagged something you said earlier that I feel like I want to pick back up on for listeners, which is you mentioned that you did a series of things to help your business leave social media. And I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit more to what are the things that you've done such that you feel like DoGoodBiz doesn't need Instagram anymore?
That is probably the most important thing for people to hear right now, especially because of just how censored everything's getting, even more so than it has been. To me, from a business standpoint, it is really risky to not be putting at least some energy into alternative avenues. And so that's where my headspace always has come from, is like, is this actually sustainable in the long term? If it's not, then I better start focusing on building other pathways. And so the key pathways that I've focused on over the years, the first one that comes to mind right off the bat is relationships. So a lot of the individuals that come to our studio heard about us. They heard about us through somebody. I don't say referrals for a reason, because it's not just clients that are hearing about us. It's someone I met at a coffee shop randomly in line, and I started chatting them up. And then we ended up following each other, on Substack or something because of it. Or like another example is like I met this really incredible person at a local native plant pickup swap. And like now I follow them on Substack and we're friends. And so it's like that kind of stuff where I'm a really, really big advocate of human connection and conversation that isn't a business agenda, right? We hear you need to network, you need to do this, you need to do that. But I think even approaching it from that headspace is so often extractive and just like capitalism driven, where it's like, get out of all of that, like put that to rest and really just focus on relationship building, like connecting with people, getting to know people, taking an interest in people. And that's been hands down the biggest thing. And I say that as someone who is quite introverted. Like I consider myself an introverted extrovert, where like if I'm in the right space where I feel safe, I'm cool. But normally I have social anxiety, I get very nervous, and I have no problem though sparking up conversations with random people or that kind of thing. And that's really been a huge, huge thing. The other thing is extending a hand to people. So I love offering to help people with no expectation of just like, wow, you've got this thing going on. How can I support you? What can I do to help? Getting involved in other people's things, being a participant of other people's things. That's been huge also. Building your collaborators that they also are seeing things in the same way of wanting to focus on this kind of reciprocal business model that is focused on relationships first and community first. It's like I have a couple people here locally in Portland that like they're always up for different ideas. Like we have Climate Week coming up here in July, and I have a friend that we're going to run like a big event for Climate Week locally. And it was solely on, oh my gosh, this would be awesome. Like this would be so wonderful. And there was no like, I hope it trickles into business or anything like that. It's really just I care about these things. I have skills and knowledge I can pass. I'm not expecting anything in return. I just want to gift this. That's a really important mentality for me, is like this gift economy mentality. And I find that always supports, it always sustains when you're coming from that place. So I know that's probably not a typical response, but I maybe hopefully like a calming response for people to hear of like it actually doesn't have to be as like fancy and hard as you might think it is. It's really just being human and caring about the world around you and getting involved in it.
I really believe that like the best thing I did for my business was build relationships for like 5 to 7 years before I started my business. And that's a really dissatisfying answer for people who are trying to start out and need to make money. But I don't really know any small business owner who wasn't independently wealthy pre-starting their business who has been able to start a successful, sustainable business without a strong web of relationships. And I loved so many of the things you said in there about how you build relationships, how you give of yourself and your time, right? Like talking to people at the plant swap, setting up an event with a friend, doing it just for the sake of interest and impact, and less, it's not a conversation about ROI or return on investment. That's like not what you're thinking about. What I'm hearing and what you're saying is a really beautiful balance of two of the core values of this show, radical generosity and energetic sovereignty, right? You are so clear on what you do and don't do in the realm of your business that you can give of yourself so freely and abundantly, and then that does pour back into the business. And I think that those are really important lessons to learn. And I think I can also self-reflect that you and I have been in business for many years, and this was much harder for me in the beginning. When I was starting out, I would give a lot and totally burn myself out. And like, I also would pour my work into places where there was no reciprocal energy flow, right? The local chamber of commerce or some like a business as usual entities. And like, I think there is also just a lot of practice that comes into learning how to move within a gift economy such that everyone is served and supported and not drained or diminished in the process.
Yes, 100%. And it makes me think about another kind of methodology I've always lived by is like a diversification of income and not depending on just one source of income. And I say that because we exist in such a really tough time where, I mean, just to try to buy groceries and pay your bills month to month is really hard for most of us at this point. I have a way of looking at work and looking at business, if you're in business, as that's all it is. It's not, my identity is no longer attached to it. It used to be for sure, but like it's just a job. And so at the end of the day, there are many ways to have a job. There are many ways to make money. And if you're feeling like you don't have enough time per se to build relationships and do things, but that's how you want to do it, it's totally okay to be like, I'm going to go get a part-time job or do this to make money to sustain myself in my life while I build this other thing that I really care about and I want to do it in alignment to my values and ethics. And that's what I did. I bartended for the first several years that I was working for myself just so that I was sustained. And I'm so grateful I did that. And I was terrified to quit that job, terrified, because it was like, oh, wow, I'm going to have to rely on myself. And I have no problem, even in my business now, where it's like, okay, I don't ever want to rely on one source of income flow because look at our economy right now. Look at what AI is doing to us right now. Like, there is a lot of wild stuff happening that's really shaking the very foundation we all are sitting on. And so, like, have a diverse way of navigating and do it in a way that actually aligns to what you stand for and takes care of you at the same time.
Yeah, I always like to insist that self-employment is a spectrum. It's not like work a full-time job for a boss or only exclusively do the things you want to do in your business all the time. And I've been through those shifts myself, as I've talked about on the podcast this year. Last year, my Softer Sounds podcast studio work just like dropped 50% because of the economy, because of AI, because of all these reasons. And I was really glad that I had also simultaneously built Off the Grid into something that in 2024, the makeup of my business was 70% Softer Sounds, 30% Off the Grid. And in 2025, it was the exact opposite. And some people will hear me say that and be like, Amelia is a brilliant strategic mind. And that wasn't the strategy. I mean, I always knew I was building both things, but I didn't know it was going to switch like that. I didn't know any of this was going to happen. And I think that that is a testament to the power of, as you've said, diverse income streams, but also of biodiversity in general. And so I'd love to bridge here into like asking you more questions about your creative ecosystem model. I know we both talk about businesses as creative ecosystems, but you've done some really beautiful writing emphasizing creative ecosystems over personal brands. And I wanted to ask you about this also because you do brand design. And so I'm curious for you, like, what is the distinction between a creative ecosystem and a personal brand? And why is that so important?
Yes, 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 yes. Such an exciting topic. Like, so the way I kind of view all things is really from like a very, very heavy ecological framework and perspective and relating things to nature because business is so not natural. The way which our society is functioning right now is not natural. And so to get myself out of the stickiness of getting stuck in those mindsets, I always try to bring it into nature, bring it into the earth. And so, from a branding perspective, branding can be really gross. It really can be really gross. And I say that non judgmentally, just like it is what it is.
And also like the history of the phrase, right? Like to be branded, even the term has this origin in slavery and like Naomi Klein's written about this and like doppelganger and other things. So just to bring that into the room, it absolutely can be very gross. And it in fact comes from some very unsettling origins. So I just wanted to bring that in.
Thank you. 100%. Because I really struggled for a long time with even being able to like say I do branding and I do brand design and brand strategy because it was just like, but that's not what I do. It's like, I know that's the language that people understand, but that's not really what I even do. And so in came really sitting with like, what is it that we actually do? And one of the things that helped a lot is learning about how other people approached branding and both the design and the strategy side of things, and really kind of seeing like, okay, this is the kind of the industry standard or the industry norm. And then comparing it to our processes, our frameworks, our ideologies, and being like, okay, this is how we do it. And this is the difference that we are taking and the different approach. So with branding, I don't believe in this whole like image-based branding of like, I need to come off professional or I need to come off high-end white glove or I need to come off cool and hip, whatever it is that we have these, it almost feels like this like wounded inner child is functioning there of just like, I feel like I have to be this way and I need to create a persona that is how I represent myself. And it's like, I've met a lot of business owners and individuals over the years where I'll sit down with them after kind of seeing them online, and I'm like, "Who are you?" Because this is not who I saw online.
Well,
And it's
hate
like,
that.
yeah, it's so shocking. And so that's one of the things, I couldn't approach it that way. And so when I look at it from an ecosystem, it's like, yes, we're air quotes building a brand, but no, we're actually building an entire ecosystem that your body of work lives within, your mission and vision lives within, your true, honest personality lives within, not who you think you should present as, but who you actually are, what you actually stand for. And the truth of you, the truth of the work, and knowing that it can change. I've gone through so many iterations of myself over the years, and I pivot and I shift whenever I feel like I'm in a new evolution. And that's okay. And I think a lot of people get this thought that it has to be this static image that is consistently driven in forever. And it's like, that's not human. And so nature-based business is human-based business. It's natural. And so it's like thinking about it from that perspective, our brands are not just us. They're the people that our work touches, whether it's just somebody online, whether it's somebody in person, whether it's through word of mouth. There's so many different connections and interwoven pieces to the communities we're a part of, near and far. I work globally, so I work everywhere from where I'm located in Portland. I have clients in Ireland right now. I have clients in the UK, and really thinking about that web of life that's created through the work, and then the trickle effect of that and the impact of that over time. And so I typically actually view branding from I'm getting visual cues as we're talking of a web of life. And our responsibility is to support that web of life through connection, through reciprocity, through relationships, through the way we show up and share and deliver our work. And so, yeah, it's definitely far greater of a thing than here's your mood board and some colors and, here's your guidelines and bye. The branding process that I love to do with people is really deep. It's really, really intimate. It's workshopping. It's collaborative. It's not one-sided at all. We always bring everybody into the entire process, every step of the way, and go really, really, really deep into concepts of what they stand for, what they believe in, what they're trying to do impact-wise. And I think that's largely because we work so heavily with impact-based, creatives, where their concepts aren't simple. They're very complex, very, very complex. And so I have to really honor that complexity through the approach to branding.
You have written a beautiful blog post titled Why Creative Ecosystems Matter More Than Personal Brands. And I just wanted to read, you have this sort of beautiful 2-column chart in there that summarizes that complexity with some beautiful simplicity or distillation that I wanted to share. So in the personal brand column, you have visibility, metrics, consistency, performance, optimization, and it's all built around individual output. And then in the creative ecosystem model or column here, it's relationship, reciprocity, care, collaboration, belonging, built through interdependence. And so much of this, honestly, maps onto the feminist values that I was teaching and writing about in the very earliest iterations of my work. If we go back to my first book, which I never talk about, which is called 50 Feminist Mantras, it is about these creative ecosystem values and how to use journaling as a practice to reroot or establish your life from that value system. But as you were talking, I also was getting some visuals, and a really funny one came up for me that I'm just going to share for whatever one listener is really into Lord of the Rings here. But I was getting this image of the way you were describing the interdependence and the web as a sort of difference between like the personal brand model is very much like building this like really tall tower so that people can see you from everywhere and you can see them. It's very much like making yourself like the Eye of Sauron at the top of this like super tall tower. And that is one way to gain visibility, right? To build up and away from everything, to be singular or the only one, as we mentioned at the very beginning. But the other model, the creative ecosystem model, is to essentially like build yourself a shire, to like be a hobbit, to burrow into the ground. And also like when we think about success in those two different models, the success in the Shire is that the entire community is thriving. Success for Sauron is like complete domination and being the only one with any power ever. And I think that most listeners of this podcast, of course, are going to desire to live in the Shire, to build a creative ecosystem. But something that I've really stepped into in my work over the past few years, or like I've really been able to bring more to fruition, is to like see the success of my work through the thriving of people in my communities, not simply through my own, revenue, profit, milestone, accomplishment, whatever. And my favorite thing about running the interweb and making this show often is the ability to be like, well, I know that that person booked work because of this episode. I know that that advertiser doubled the size of their email list because they were partnered with me on an ad for the show. Like, it's about the mutual flourishing, which is so different than what traditional quote unquote branding work espouses.
100%. Yes, yes, yes. Because instantly I was thinking about monocultures and, the normal way in America, the United States, to handle like your yard is this like monoculture, kill everything and put down this imported grass and imported plants that are probably invasive and have this like singular thing in your yard that then does not support anything. It doesn't support the natives, the flora and fauna that is native. And it's just like, it's Sauron, and it's just this like singular thing that really is not sustainable in any capacity. We actually have been like going completely native on our land. And to see, like, especially now that it's, getting warmer and stuff like that, and to see the insects, the animals, the new natives just like popping up that were not put here. It's wild and it's so cool. And it's just like by just allowing things to be sustained, the life that's created beyond myself, and I think that's so fulfilling and so desirable. Whereas doing it the solo kind of influencer way of like, I'm this influencer business and it's all about me and it's all about, what I'm doing and my successes, that really perpetuates such a superior, weird dynamic. It just doesn't resonate with me. That's not the way that I want to see the world thrive. And I don't believe that's the way that the world does thrive. So it's kind of anti-nature also.
Yeah. I feel like in some of the ways we've talked about this, it can sound kind of, I'm talking about Lord of the Rings. It sounds fantastical, or it sounds like not impractical, but like high level or something. And I just want to be clear that like this stuff is so practical, right? Do you send a weekly newsletter? Could you add a section that promotes somebody else's something every week? It's like, do you have a podcast? Could you do a shout out to another show at the top of every episode? Do you have a website? Could you add a page where you link all your collaborators and people you admire? Do you put flyers out in the world? Could you also carry flyers for friends with you and put up 3 everywhere you normally put up one of yours? The purpose of having these values isn't just to be like, I have these values. It's to actually do these practical actions that stem from the values. And to me, that also gets back to this sort of conversation around branding, right? Like it's sort of easy to like build a brand on nothing, right? To like make it look pretty. A brand can be a performance that actually is not rooted in any practical action or impact in the world. And I think that is the danger of branding. And I think that is also why we have so many issues with trust in online business, because so many people out there have like brilliant, beautiful brands who are frankly like barely even brand new to the work, or they've been doing it for a long time, but they still like don't have relationships, don't have results, don't have all these things that like I look to. And that's not to say that you can't be brand new with a beautiful brand. Of course you can. Like I support that. But I also think being really clear about like how are you putting into practice what you stand for? How does your, the philosopher in me is like, how is your praxis as strong as your theory? I think is really important here, because I'm sure nothing bothers me more, and I'm sure you'll relate to this, than the sort of like greenwashing or pinkwashing or aligned values washing of some just like manipulative traditional online business junk.
Yep. It drives me bonkers, honestly. And I love what you just shared of like, it really isn't a high lift like we think it's going to be to implement these methods and approaches to business. To me, it's almost like a homecoming in a lot of ways of like remembering who we are and why we're here. And we're not here just to be these like little business operators that, crunch numbers and post on social media all day. It's like, is that really the purpose? No, I don't think so. And I think that's a large part why I always come back to nature as a guide and a mentor, is because we often forget that we're a part of it all. We're not the part. We're not the only thing that exists. And when we remember that, you can lean back a little bit and be supported more, right? There's so much support around us, but we have to also remember like that is a reciprocal exchange. We support, we are supported. And building that exchange is not that difficult because it's actually just part of how we are and who we are.
It's actually way more work to have a perfectly green grass lawn year round than it is to just let native plants grow. And if you have been growing a perfectly green lawn year round, aka performing a brand on social media, it's really hard at first to get the native plants to come back, right? Like they don't want to grow on soil that has just been like sprayed with Raid for decades. Like it's hard. The same way that it's hard to know what your creative urges and inner impulses are if you have been performing on social media for the past 10 years. Like it's not that you jump from the trying really hard to the ease immediately. Often we all need a remediation process for the soil and for ourselves as we make these shifts. We have to be gentle with ourselves. We have to pace ourselves. It takes time, but it is possible. And I'm so with you, Natalie. Like on the other side of it, this is so much more easeful. Like what I'm doing now is so much more easeful and supported than anything I was doing when I was like, literally for me, like dancing around in my underwear on Instagram, because that's what I used to do. So
I know I don't know, I think it was like at the end of last year, I just got this like, I don't know why it came into my mind, but I got this urge of like, I'm deleting every single reel I've ever made. And so I went and just like completely deleted all of them. And I looked back and I was like, wow, that's really interesting to see where I was and what I thought I had to do versus today where I'm like, I don't even remember the last time I took a photo of myself. Like, I have no idea.
I know it's so real. As we're recording this, I've just recently returned home from doing a book reading in San Francisco, which was like my first book event. It was really exciting. And I got to the end of it and like went back to where I was staying that night. And I was like, oh, I don't have a single photo, like not nary a one, because like all of my Instagram training is gone. And I was reflecting on how if I had still been, my influencer self that I was 5 years ago, like I probably would have hired a photographer. Like getting photographs of the event would have been just as important as having the event, being at the event, doing anything there. And am really glad that someone did actually snap a picture and I like have one image of myself talking about my book. It just really reflected back to me the complete and total mindset shift and like process shift that I've gone through in really leaving and staying off of and like fully divorcing myself from social media. And again, so much more ease. And I felt so much more supported when I wasn't sitting there imagining how I looked the whole time.
Yes. Yes. And how am I coming off? And oh, yeah, just so much insecurity that now it's just kind of like dissipated so much.
It was a really like feel good experience in my body to go through that and to do all of it without social media. And the only people who saw it were the ones who were there. And I had like one picture on my phone. Like that's the whole thing.
It makes experiences so much different too when there's not this like paper trail, right? Of like, oh, now I have to see myself posted on social media and this. Like there's this level of vulnerability and humanness that we can experience in moments when we're not so captivated by how do I capture this moment and how do I come off in this moment.
Yeah. And as a participant in spaces too, I feel more relief that I'm not trying to like perform. And when I'm not worried about a screenshot, I don't have to quote unquote be on brand all the time. And that's a big relief too.
Yeah, 100%. I think that what you just hit there about like being on brand and that's such a performative experience where it's like if you're focused on more of this ecosystem approach that we're talking about, there is no I have to be on brand or I am the brand representation because there's so much beyond yourself that the brand is made of. We're just a culmination of all of those things. It's not about just us.
I'm curious as we're wrapping up how you see the web of your impact branching out because you write beautiful essays, you give people aha moments all the time. Can we offer you any kudos for the way that your business is changing the world?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's so wild to watch things because kind of even speaking to what we were just talking about of this like performing for the personal brand, the further away from that I get, the more impact I can see happening. I think for me, Substack has been really eye-opening. And I know, say what you want about Substack, there's plenty to critique there too. But I started Substack like kind of on a whim because I've been really over the last couple years really putting my writing practice in the foreground. And I really just kind of started it without knowing what to expect or anything. And it has been just absolutely incredible to see the growth of community and relationships there. And just seeing like, oh, wow, somebody shared this with this person and now I made this connection here, or just the web that happens just through this like sharing of work where I have no paywall of any sense on my Substack. It's literally completely free. I make scenes on there that are free. We just launched a podcast free, like all of it's, completely just a gift. And so to see the way in which that spreads just through gifting out ideas, thoughts, and knowledge is so cool. But outside of that, it's been really neat to see a couple people that I've known for several years and I've worked with in lots of different ways, and to see where they're at today, how their ecosystems have expanded. That's like wild. It's so wild. It makes me think about this one person that I've been working with for about 3.5 years now, and we do full service retainer work for them, marketing management, website and website management and all the whole shebang. And they're a little bit older than me, about 10 years older than me, and I'm 40. And to see how they're in like their prime right now, it's like the coolest thing and it's so inspiring. And just to see like through the support that we've provided, how they've been able to kind of relax within themselves and to have the capacity to support more people. And just that that ripple effect is just wild. It's so wild. And that's where I get really gushy and really geeked out because I'm just like, this is so cool. Like so, so cool. So that, or like driving down a street and being like, I designed that design that's up their, window or something like that is always really cool too. Community involvement, I love to see just kind of like the impact of that as well. So yeah, lots of different ways.
This is just really reminding me of just like the beauty of having your work reflected back to you and how that doesn't exist in the sort of like singular, only one brand model where your goal is to like dominate the message and be the only voice out there. I mean, I don't think anyone listening to this is really doing that, but we're all familiar with it. And so I just love this ecosystems approach and how, there's so many symbiotic relationships in nature and we can create symbiosis in our business ecosystems as well. So that feels like such a beautiful note to wrap our conversation on. Natalie, thank you so much for this. If listeners want to learn more about you, connect with your work, where can they find you online or in person?
Yeah, so obviously I'm in Portland, Oregon. So if there's anybody in the Portland or Oregon vicinity, feel free to reach out because I love going on coffee dates and just catching up with people in person. And then outside of that, website is DoGoodBiz.studio. And the only other place I'm really active is Substack. And I do weekly publications on Substack.
Yeah, and your essays are so amazing. So I do highly recommend that folks subscribe. That'll be linked in the show notes. Thank you so much, Natalie, for this wonderful conversation. I feel so just like uplifted and ready to go to work. I got to like build my ecosystem, but I'm so grateful for your time here. And listeners, we're so grateful that you're tuned in. We hope that this episode can be inspiration to build in your own ecological models, to think about the creative ecosystem of your business and to let go of any strategies or platforms that feel like they're harming you and the planet and the world that you want to live in. So we'll be back soon. And until then, you can find us off the grid.
I kind of hate social media, feeds on my brain like a bacteria. If you read my Wikipedia, it'll say I kind of hate social media. Post a picture of myself, sacrifice my mental health, use your product, time to sell. I would rather go to hell. Do you like this? Leave a comment. Can you share this? Comment? Can you share this? Will you wear this? Okay.
That was an abridged version of Social Media by Surfer Boy and Rectangle. To hear the entire song, find Surfer Boy on Spotify or head to the link in the show notes. Thanks so much to them for sharing the song with us, as well as to Melissa Caitlin Carter, who sings our theme song that you hear at the start of every show. I'm your host, Amelia Fruby, and if you enjoyed this episode, I hope you will download the free Leaving Social Media Toolkit at offthegrid.fun/toolkit. Until next time, I will see you off the grid.